This is the final session in the conference. Oh, you do, yeah, so you think, yeah.
Okay, please. Okay, so the structure is we have until 12:30. The idea is that each of us makes a little comment on trying to synthesize what we learned from it. Then we open for a discussion with you that, you know, your points and, you know, and then at the very end, I will announce the best paper award, and we'll thank everybody and conclude and go for lunch. So we go in this order. Juan, you want to start?
Maybe I can start going back to last year when we decided the topic of the conference. We identified in the data strategy this defined by the Commission, this idea of the data spaces. I think we made a mistake, a mistake in timing. We thought that the Commission would publish the strategy around the data spaces faster. And we had even kind of some internal information that they had intentions, at least in transport, to publish it earlier. But reality has proven that these data spaces are far more complex than what we expected. And it was only very recently that the proposal for the first data space has been published. But those that are more closely connected, transport, energy, and or climate related, they have not published. And it's not even, it's not clear even, it's not they're published, really where they are heading to. So I think we will have opportunities for future conferences on this topic. But I think it's, yeah, there is growing thinking about these issues, about data spaces and about data governance and these challenges about how to organize this data governance. And then I think we have different angles. Of course, we have the first angle is around gatekeepers, market power, and we had some interesting papers around those topics. And of course, the debate is more advanced. We have a text, and we had a lot of debate about it. I find the DMA fascinating. We were discussing about it. I mean, this merging of competition law, regulation, ex post regulatory or ex ante, and I think it's just a world to be created, and a very exciting world to be created. So we had some debate around that, and I think that was a very interesting piece. Also because, yeah, the ambition, some of the remedies of the potential ex ante remedies that have been defined in the DMA have further implications also in terms of data sharing. And so there was a lot of, I mean, crosses between the two angles. So we have one angle, which is market power, gatekeepers, the DMA. And then we have this Data Governance Act and data spaces and all these alternatives, which for me was a very confusing situation. And definitely, for me personally, I've learned a lot from the conference. This was a very open conference. We didn't know what kind of papers we would get. So will it be more about mobility as a service, the energy, but it was very open. We received very different papers, and that was very useful because really it helped to understand the kind of debate. Some of them I recognize were completely new to me. So it helped to understand where the debates are at this stage, where everything is very open. And then we have some interesting elements in this. We could say somehow this alternative approach to the gatekeepers. So digitalization, the internet, the platforms have evolved in a way that, I don't know, I wouldn't say no one expected, but definitely it was not the utopia of decentralization that we were promised in the 90s. And that's very clear. Competition lawyers were probably in the front line. They identified the problems, they have the cases, they have the judgments, and that's very clear at this stage. So we are starting to build, and that's something led by the European Commission, but led following, I think, a request from a lot of different industries that we need to find an alternative to these Silicon Valley gatekeepers. So this is the second strength. We need to find governance models for an alternative model to emerge. And then we have different layers, coming back again to the layers. So we have an element about the data infrastructure, the cloud, and this sovereignty around the cloud, and the very same physical infrastructure that is supporting digitalization, and the Gaia project, and we had very good paper on that, and the trends, the tensions there. And then we have the data sharing and the governance around that sharing. And that's where I think what we have learned, the models, the spaces, all the governance, because it's perceived that is the governance that is the bottleneck, it's the obstacle for, first of all, for data sharing to take place. And once it takes place, for this alternative to the gatekeepers to emerge. So the Commission is trying different roads. It's trying to, on the one hand, for instance, these data intermediaries, my understanding is that they are trying to create trust through a very rigid model to see if it flies, to see if it works. But it's not that it's imposing a model. I think at the same time, you have other models that are being supported by the Commission. They are trying different ways to support these alternative governance models. We'll see which one works better. We have even an issue about whether it will work at all, whether this alternative, an alternative at the end of the day to concentration in the gatekeepers, whether we can go back to this decentralized, digitalized model, whether it will succeed or not, or whether the big gatekeeper platform model is so powerful that we really cannot fight against it. If we come back to our network infrastructure-based industries, sometimes I'm optimistic in the sense that it's not so easy to disrupt these industries as it was with the more virtual, purely data information, so audiovisual searches, these kind of things. Because in order to have access to data, you need a lot of collaboration from the infrastructure owners and the service providers, the owners of the trains, the rail tracks, the planes, the generation plants. It's not something that you can do from Silicon Valley. You really, I mean, this was the instrument to digitalize. We were sending ourselves the data through to Silicon Valley, and many of the platforms, Airbnb, Uber, have very, very little local presence in the cities that they are working on. They don't need it. We are sending them the data through. But that will not happen with the infrastructure-based industries, in the sense that data are controlled by the owners of the infrastructure, the services. So it's not easy to get that data. And we see it. These companies do not want to send the data to Silicon Valley, and they're opposing to. So the idea from the Commission, one of the ideas is, okay, so let's try to build something decentralized. Let's try to get all these industries working together through these governance systems to, so they can build their own ecosystems, more horizontal, decentralized, etc. Again, will it succeed? I'm optimistic in the sense that they will not be so easily disrupted. But then I meet reality. I mean, we meet these ecosystems in the Florence School, in transport, we meet them regularly. We meet the aviation companies, the stakeholders, we meet the railways, we meet the urban. And after each of these meetings, it's impossible. They will never coordinate. I mean, they don't seem, they claim that they are interested in this coordination, but I'm very successful. And then I have this idea, and you made exactly the same use of the same words. Maybe it's not about data. Maybe there is something else. And the idea is that we were saying, and you were using also the same words, data is a way to coordinate these ecosystems. But maybe it's just that some players, a lot of players, do not want to be coordinated. I mean, they feel very comfortable in the situation where they are, particularly when they are monopolistic providers of managers of infrastructure. So this idea that it's just about a blockchain technical solution, we share the data, maybe we impose some obligations, and then everything will be solved. I'm very suspicious. I mean, it's not only that they don't want to share the data, they don't want to share the data because they don't want to be coordinated, but those, I mean, because that's the objective of having the data. So, and they don't want to be coordinated from Silicon Valley, but they don't want to be coordinated locally by anyone else. They just want to keep things as they are. They digitalize themselves, their operations, they save costs, they get more efficient in the management of their own systems. But when we talk about coordinating multimodal traveling, for instance, they are very reluctant. And then a final idea. If we push, I mean, if the Commission, member states push for really compulsory data sharing, particularly on these owners of physical infrastructure, we do it with the idea of creating this alternative model, horizontal distributed against the gatekeepers. But might it not be the case that we are just accelerating growth of gatekeepers in these industries? Because if we force data sharing, those data will end up in Silicon Valley, and they might end up disrupting even the infrastructure industries, because we eliminate the line of defense of the infrastructure owners, which is only I can generate the data from my infrastructure. So this final idea, and it's kind of a provocation, might it be the case that all this attempt to create an alternative distributed model might backfire and end up accelerating the gatekeepers in the infrastructure-based traditional network industries?
There are many themes. Very quickly, let me put this way. I think that mainly what we discussed in these 2 days was 1 day and a half was how the data world is changing, how the Commission is intervening, the Data Act, the Data Governance Act, what they are trying to do. And we have the impression that they are trying something, but let's say that we have doubts about the possibility of success. But this is part of a more general flow, let's put it this way, in which take standardization as another major issue. The Commission has come up very recently with this standardization project, in which they are saying that Europe has to become very important in standardization, has to have become one of the main actors, and is a project similar to some of the things on data. They call attention, and they call they put some money, they call for an effort. And obviously, I'm not saying that they don't have any chance. They have a chance because ETS is important, Senelec is important, Europe is important in standardization. But still, there are many other actors in the world, and they are very, very strong. And there are the private companies, there are other important regional, the US, China, in Asia, there are a lot of. So it's a challenge, and it's an open challenge. Then sustainability. Sustainability is another of the great targets of the clearly climate change is here, the problems are here, and so on. The Union has a project, a very important plan, and so on. Then the Ukrainian war arrives, and we see that we are in a lot of troubles, honestly. And so sustainability is there, but there is an immediate problem of energy response and so on. And so we see also that this is. Then artificial intelligence, even there big plans, projects, design, but the feeling, I cannot be 100% sure, but the feeling is that we are quite behind, that US and China are much, at least if you look at venture capital investment, these things, there is really no comparison. There is a huge gap. So Maybe they are doing the wrong investments. I don't know, but they are doing a lot of investment that we are not doing. So it looks like we have a project, but we are very behind. Then there is platform regulation. Here we are come up, this commission came up with the DMA, as you probably know, but let me use the occasion. Monday and Tuesday, we will have a very major conference, very important conference on Digital Market Act here in Florence. There will be a lot of people here, but it's also open. So if you are interested, is an interesting conference, not only because there are many of the important experts and many of the authorities, top people and so on, but also because it will go not article by article, but issue by issue. In the each panel will discuss one of the pieces of the DMA, interoperability, data, portability, most favored nation clauses. So all the main comparators, issues, and so all the many areas of discussion about end of prohibition or intervention in the DMA. So it could be very informative as a conference. So the DMA, there Europe is coming up with a legislation. Let me say that organizing this conference, we realized that there is not only Europe, in South Korea, they are regulating platforms. In China, they've done a strong attack against many platforms, trying to, they regulate their own way, but it's regulation. And other, in the US, you know, there is nothing yet, but there are a lot of laws in the parliament, and maybe they will never go through, we don't know. It's a question, they are supported apparently bipartisanly, but then bipartisan in the US is a complex story. So anyway, there the DMA is a step that is moving, Europe is moving a step. You know, this is a very contested step, there are many doubts, but still is an attempt to regulate the market power of gatekeepers in some way. Then there is this media information, disinformation collapse, on which Europe has a response also with the DSA, I would say, and the new law is arriving in few days, few weeks probably. The European Media Freedom Act will arrive, so there will be a proposal even there by Europe about how to deal with certain of the issues of the media disinformation crisis, let's say. So you see, there are, Europe seems to be in the middle on this regulatory world, starting from data, but coming to everything, seems in the middle between an illusion that we are a regulatory superpower, so that we can adjust the world regulating. And the example of this illusion is the GDPR. Okay, I don't know if there are many fans of the GDPR, I'm not among them, okay? I don't think that has solved anything clearly, okay? I think it's costs, it's complexity and so on. Still, Europe somehow has this GDPR saying, well, look, we have regulated personal data, all the world will follow. But I mean, I don't know. So we are in the middle of this tension between we can regulate the world and that's enough, and then the realization that the world is more complex than regulation. And so you see pieces of this reaction. The CHIPS Act, for instance, is an important piece of this. Europe realized that we don't produce any chip. Chip are the engine of everything. So let's start to put money, some serious money, to have people producing some chips also in Europe, because we cannot all depend on Taiwan that may be invaded, then we won't have chips. What happens? I don't know. So you see, there is this tension, and this tension goes across all these things we have been discussing here. When one says, well, we are looking for an alternative to big tech, no? To maybe a decentralized alternative or a public alternative, Really, we are looking for something that is a place in the world. Really, that's what we are looking for. So, and it's not easy. I don't know how well we are doing. We are clearly in the middle between this illusion of the regulation and probably the illusion that we can do by ourselves, that we can build things by ourselves again in a way in which, in this also in this more technological world in which we have been behind or part of the division of the supply chains in which we don't produce many of these things. So we'll see. I think that this is the way in which we are at this moment. So the data discussion we had here is, I think, very typical of the situation in general. So we have good ideas, we are trying to organize things, we are trying to give a framework, but also there are pieces that go all over. Let's put it this way. So probably we will find an equilibrium, as normally reality does. And I think that this discussion we had is interesting in this. I don't want to go further than this. I have some idea on data, but not I'm not too sure that they are a part of the discussion today. But let me say, okay, if I want only take a clue from what Juan was saying before. I think that the big tech has got this strength from, okay, at some point, internet was built and they managed to grow out of it, inventing things, as I try to say today, or platform, or becoming platform above other industries. And the way in which they did this was through centralizing things, okay? Maybe, I'm not 100% sure, but maybe we are in front of a decentralization, a new wave in which there could be decentralization. And then all industries may be different. Some are still in need to centralize, so we are in a different way. But generally speaking, maybe Web3 is coming. So there is another occasion. And this is the occasion of Internet of Things, it's the occasion of many things decentralized, and this is a new game. In this new game, maybe we have a new chance. The only thing I'm sure is that a new chance cannot be caught only from one side. If we think in Europe that we can get the solution only regulating, well, I think it's an illusion. If we think that we can build autonomously what is needed, I think is also an illusion. I think we will have to work for this new equilibrium, and it won't be easy. And we are kind of behind in some of the key areas. So it will be a very difficult challenge. However, let me conclude that this commission has been one of the most in the game. I mean, we have been sleeping for 10 years, probably, maybe 20. This commission has been probably one of the most active. I'm not saying that they got the solutions. I'm very uncertain on many things, but I think that we are trying to play in the game. But we don't have to have too many illusions.
Happy to make a few comments. So Juan, you said maybe we did this conference too early. I'm not sure if that's true, but I am sure that I am too late coming to this conference because and that's really true. I joined the school in 2008, and I'm a bit embarrassed to say that this is the first time I attend this conference because I liked it really, really a lot for many different reasons. And maybe one of the main reasons I like it is because, in fact, it is too early to really be able to discuss data spaces, but that's good because the earlier we start interacting with the Commission level on this topic, the more impact we can have, right? And it seems to be that some of us have some serious concerns about which direction it could take. So I wrote down also as an action point to engage with DG Energy on this topic, because if it is still so open on what it can become, it's an opportunity as well, right? To still maybe push it in the right direction. what I also really like about this conference, so it's not only for us, Florence School of Regulation, breaking silos across our network industries, right? I also really like the style of the conference. I think you've created clearly a community here. Some people come back every year, it seems. And also you feel that, no? There is a trust. People are not embarrassed to present work in progress and they get good feedback on that. And then at the last day, you even lead by example because you present some of your own work that is also still a bit shaky and you are not embarrassed to do that in front as conference organizers. I think that's a big compliment. And then you have Luigi being rather tough on you, but good because his feedback was really good. So it shows that we can be tough on each other and also frank, right? And we are not embarrassed to give each other's feedback. So I think that's really a nice example of the way to do things. Also, I was really watching the profile of the people that are here, and that in itself is also interesting for me. The multidisciplinarity of the topic, right? Yes, maybe there are quite some legal background people here, but we also have at least one engineer that dared to come out of his blockchain environment and face all of us. And there are a few other interesting profiles here. And I think that's also great, right? Also, I'm very happy to see several people of the EUI departments. It's really, really nice. I mean, we all, as an institute, we're always trying to collaborate more. So I spotted that immediately. We had really many. We had Moshe, we had Lola, we had Maria Vittoria, and several more. I think that's also really, really great. Very happy to see that. Then in terms of topics, I also, as a researcher, I'm always looking for new topics. I want to know more. And topics for me, I thought I was already advanced with in my opening comments. I was very proud to refer to a paper we did on interoperability. But it turns out that I'm completely outdated because I didn't know the FAIR concept that you introduced. So it's all about being findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. So I was already cool. I'm working on interoperability, but it's only, I only cover 1/4 of what I should be covering to be really showing that I know my stuff. So I also discovered data cooperatives, completely new. The importance of intermediaries, completely new for me. These digital product passports, very fascinating. And then the public service dimension of platforms, also a completely new topic for me. So, no, great. I'm just happy to have been here and I look forward to come to the next one. Congrats to the organizers. And that's not me. I'm just here as a tourist today.
Thank you, Leo. Juan, can you put the, I like to draw things. So I just draw one. Yeah, because, there is this saying, if you cannot draw it, it's not clear. And it's still not clear, but at least it allows you to move on. So just from yeah, it's the 11th conference, but I think is one of the best. It's we have a topic, we turn around the topic and then we enlighten it from different angles. And my aim, and I think with Juan we share this, is how to think digitalization. And it's not just platforms, it's this whole new digital thing. And and we need to think it from a more interdisciplinary way, or transit. Every discipline has something to say, but we are, I think, at least here, clearly, when I go to some other conferences, the economists tell me that this is how you think the thing, but here, yeah, okay, there is an economic dimension, there's a legal dimension, there's a political dimension, and engineering, of course. So the interdisciplinarity, and then also be a little bit humble about this academic approach. Yes, we try to think, but the reality, the technological reality, but also what the EU is simply doing, that's a new reality. We can judge it, we have to take it into account, and so they go back between theory and practice, and And so I think that's what we try to do here, and build a network for people who can continue to discuss this. So what I have tried to do here is just very simplistic. So the basic tension is between, you know, this market as the new oil, but I can go further. You know, we look, there's some interesting things. California dreaming, tech liberalism, all this on the one hand, and then on the other, the monopolization of the, you said centralization. You know, this total contradiction between the discourse we have on the open internet and decentralized, and the reality of centralized platforms that coordinate everything, platform power. So I think that's the basic tension we are in. And what the EU is trying to do is to define, we always said that, I mean, is to find an EU way in that. Okay. And yeah, it turns now around these data spaces as the new EU way, but I put a question mark. And I mean, that reflects what has been said. Juan even said maybe this could backfire and we accelerate yeah. So that's one thing. And then I think we saw, especially from Maria Vittoria's paper, but it's all over, this idea that we can have some sort of EU sovereignty on this, digital sovereignty, or even GDPR, you know, or the EU way imposed to the rest of the planet. And so on, but there are more Chip Act, and all these kind of things to become independent, delinked from the world. Okay, so that's one thing, and that goes on. But I think that's a little bit an add-on. That's a new thing that comes once we realize that how to get out of that tension. And what we wanted to add, and I'm, you know, as a political scientist, I'm always interested in what are the public policy objectives. So I think that's the other thing and it will come. It's a matter of time. But there, you know, we will have to discuss what is that's my idea, you know. What is the appropriate level? Is that really the EU level, or back to the national, or back to the local, or a combination of both? And then of course there are a lot of tensions. You can draw tensions between everything in market and sovereignty, market and public policy. You know, you can develop a little bit. I think most of these topics we have touched in one way or another. So I don't know whether it is useful, but at least, you know, somehow with the data spaces as the new EU way, yes, the idea is good, but how?